Hello everyone, I'm Den Haring and welcome to my channel, Fish Den 365. Today we're going to be talking all about swim jigs. You know, just a few short years ago, if you thought of what a swim jig was, you might think of a jig like this, a swim-shaped jig with a trailer like this pack-a-chunk on the back, or maybe a Yamamoto double tail, or maybe a Strike King Rage Crawl. And then you would throw that bait out, reel it over some weed beds typically, and you would move your rod. You'd pump your rod up and down so that bait would have some more action imparted in it. These obviously these appendages are going to be going like this, but you would often do this with the bait also by pumping the rod up and down. But the landscape of swim jig fishing has been changing with new trailers and new ideas for fishing these jigs. One of the things that I like to do is use a plastic swim bait as a trailer. And when you do this, the bait has plenty of its own action already imparted in it. You don't have to pump the rod. I mean, you can if you want. And this method here works just fine that we just talked about. Catches many fish, works especially well in the summertime. But putting a swim bait on the back of these jigs adds a whole new dimension to swim jig fishing. And I really like to fish, I really prefer to fish the swim jig with something like this on the back, a swimming tail. You can use a Reaction Innovations Trixie Shad or Trixie Shark. This happens to be a Kitech Swing Impact Fat swim bait. There's a lot of options out there that you can use. When I think about swim jigs, I think of them as hybrid lures. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I like fishing hybrid lures, and I'll give you some examples of what a hybrid lure is. This one here is a hybrid. What I mean by a hybrid lure is that it fishes two different ways. It does two different things. So this here is a Lucky Craft gunfish, and you could walk the dog with it, make it sashay back and forth like this, just like you can with a Zara Spook or a Lucky Craft Sammy. But you could also make this bait pop and spit, just like you could with a Rebel Pop R. That's what I mean by a hybrid bait. You can do two different things with it. Here's another example of a hybrid bait. This is the Norman Top Dollar. In my estimation, it's the most underrated topwater lure ever made. You can't get this lure anymore except on eBay, and people are paying something like $30 to $40 per lure. By the way, when I hit 250 subscribers, I'm going to be giving one of these away, so I'll have more information on that in a future video. But this lure is a dynamite lure because you can walk the dog with it, and it pops and spits because of the concave face of the lure. So another good example of a hybrid lure. If you want to learn more about this lure, take a look at my video called The Most Underrated Topwater Lure, and I'll put a link right above me here so that you can easily get to that video. It's all about the Norman Top Dollar. Here's another great example of a hybrid bait. This is a spoon that's been modified. I drill a hole right here, right on the top, so that I put my snap here. And now when this bait falls, and I put a hook on the front and on the back, when the bait falls, it flutters just like a spoon. But when I lift it from a fall, it vibrates like this. It comes up and vibrates very rapidly like a blade bait. So this is a modification that allowed me to get a hybrid lure here. I have a blade bait, but it's also a spoon. If you want to learn more about this, take a look at the video entitled Secret Bait Modification that Mark Zona knows. I'll put a link right up here for this one too. It's a good video. Okay, so back to swim jigs. What makes a swim jig, or the way I fish a swim jig, a hybrid bait? Well, quite simply, it is a combination of a swim bait, like this one here, combined with a jig, like you see here. So I have a combination jig and swim bait. So what are some of the advantages of that? Well, let's get into that next. So when we're talking about a swim bait, a soft plastic swim bait like this Kitech, I think the best description I heard of this is that it has a primary action, right? It has a type of action where the tail kicks in a certain way, and that's what attracts the fish. I believe it was Matt Allen on Tactical Bassinet described it this way, and it's a very good description. But when you combine the swim bait, with a jig like this, you have the primary action of the bait, but you have this secondary action of the jig. So you have this lure swimming through the water, and the skirt of the jig is pulsating, vibrating. It might have some flash in it depending on what kind of skirt you have on there. So it actually looks perhaps more alive to the fish. It's just giving the fish a little bit of a different look. It adds a bigger profile to the bait. It makes the bait appear wider to the fish also. So you've got a couple of things working in your favor when you combine the swim jig with the swim bait as a trailer. It's a really good 1-2 punch to put these two together to catch fish. Now when the water's cold like it is now, we have water in the 50s. When the water's in the 50s or below, where I fish, I prefer to use a finesse swim jig, and this is a Dirty Jigs finesse swim jig. It's got a little lighter wire hook than the Dirty Jigs regular swim jig. That's okay though, because when the water's cold, the bass don't have the same kind of hard fight as they do when the water's warmer. So I can get away. Plus, this is a very stout hook. It's just not quite as thick as the one on the regular swim jig that Dirty Jig sells. I like the finesse swim jig because it has less strands. Because it has less strands on the skirt, and it's just not too bulky to fish in the springtime. I just think it works better in the colder water months. As the water warms up, then I like to go to a Dirty Jigs swim jig, not the finesse one. I usually go heavier. This is a 1/2 ounce here, and I usually bulk up my presentation by using a larger trailer. And so in the summertime, that's what I'll do. Now, what's the best time of year to fish a swim jig? Swim jigs catch fish year-round. They catch fish in spring, summer, fall, and winter. But if I only had one season that I was allowed to throw it would be spring. In springtime, this particular swim jig with this trailer on it is a killer. And I'll probably have some videos coming up pretty shortly as soon as I'm able to get back out on the water where I show some fish being caught on this, because this is just a good time of year to be fishing this. Anywhere where you would consider throwing a spinnerbait like this type of swim jig could also be very good. I would choose this swim jig over the spinnerbait in certain conditions. If the water that I'm fishing is very cold, I'd be more likely to use the swim jig. If the water that I'm fishing is highly pressured and very clear and very still, not a windy day, I'd be more likely to use the swim jig. If the water doesn't have a whole lot of fishing pressure, or if it's muddy or dirty or good and stained and it's a decently windy day, I'm more likely to throw the spinnerbait, because those blades add vibration and flash that you don't get with the swim jig. So it's just a matter of what the conditions are dictating you to do. So I fish a lot of heavily pressured lakes here in eastern Pennsylvania. I just have a little more confidence in this bait when the water is still and clear than I would with a spinnerbait. However, this bait is a killer even when the water is pressured, under the right conditions, when you have a bit of stain to the water and you have a little bit of wind. And we'll probably do a spinnerbait video sometime in the near future. By the way, if you're curious about what these baits are and where I'm getting them from, and I will have all that information under the description in this video. So there'll be links to the baits and the lures that we talk about here. So you kind of see my philosophy, my way of thinking about fishing these in spring. In the summer, I like to go, as I previously said, to a heavier jig, and I might bulk up my presentation. This is a Robo Worm Easy Shad. You can see it's got pretty good bulk to it. It's got a real nice soft tail, works very well. Something like this on the back of this bait, you can see that's a pretty big profile bait. And I might even use a 3/4 ounce jig, a larger jig with something like this. And come when you have that warm water and the fish are eating gizzard shad and big bait fish in the summer, and again in the fall, especially early fall, this thing could be a killer. And it really does well at coming through cover. It comes through weeds very well. I just like plow it through everything that I can plow it through. I'll throw it in the lily pads and just kind of plow it through there. And so this thing's banging its way through, and it really has a lot of good action to it. And there are certain days where they just kill this bait. And so it could be very effective in that time of the year too. So our waters are warming up now. It's a good time to get out there and experiment with this bait one of the things I like to do with it is I'll throw it out, and I'll throw it under a number of conditions. There might be bluff banks, and I'll throw it into the bluff bank, and I'll just let it sink to the bottom or drop down before I swim it back. Or I might swim it and then stop it and just let it flutter down from one bluff to the next. And sometimes that works very well. But then in the very same day, 10 minutes later, I may be fishing a shallow weed bed and just throwing this thing out and reeling it over the weed bed. One of the things that you want to do with a swim jig like this is change your cadence, change your retrieve up. So you might be retrieving this bait a number of reel turns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns, and then all of a sudden just stop it, just kill it and let this thing flutter down and then start up again. And oftentimes right as you're starting up again, that's when they'll crush it. So making sure that you're changing the cadence of the bait to trigger more strikes is important. You can also get strikes just reeling it straight in, but I find that you can trigger more strikes by changing the cadence of the bait, letting it drop. One of the best things to do is just to reel it in at a slow, steady pace and then just kill it and then start to reel again. And oftentimes that's what'll trigger the fish to bite. So we're getting warmer water now. It's a good time to get out there and try the swim jig. Just want to take a moment to thank everyone for watching all the videos and all the compliments on the channel. I am looking forward to doing more videos, and I'm looking to get more subscribers. So if you like these videos, please share with your friends, get the word out there. I want to get to 250 subscribers as soon as possible, and when I get there, I'll be giving away one of these top dollars. This bait is going on eBay right now for $30 to $40 a pop. So I have several of them, and I'll be giving one away when we get to 250 subscribers. So please subscribe, hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. If you are a subscriber, I think you have to hit the bell now just so that you get notification when a new video comes out. So you may want to hit that if you want to be notified that I have a new video for you to watch. And I thank everyone for subscribing. Please comment and share your comments with me. Let me know what your thoughts are, what your experiences are. And I look forward to bringing more content to you very soon. May God bless your fishing endeavors.